Thank you for coming. The other day I told you that the investigation into the quadruple murder that occurred on Pasadena in Metairie continues. Let me once again reiterate and thank the men and women of the JPSO and their incredible work that they've done in this particular investigation. And as such, that work continues. As a result of conducting diagnostics on a phone that we seized in the search warrants relative to Armand Tart, we began to do link analysis on that phone, and as a result, that led us to an individual by the name of Newell, black male, 52 of 2645 Albany Street in Kenner. After conducting interviews with Mr. Manuel, we learned that he was called by Armand Tart from the scene on Pasadena immediately after the killing of Harold Friesarter, which was the white male victim, and also made calls subsequent to the murders that occurred across the courtyard. He desired that Armand Tart desired that Terry Manuel pick him up in the uptown area of New Orleans early that morning, which he did in fact, actually wanted him to pick him up and meet him originally in the Pasadena area. As he approached the Pasadena area, he saw the responding police units to that scene and immediately reached out to Armand Tart, wanting to know what the deal was. Tart informed Manuel that he had just committed a robbery and needed him to meet him in Uptown to pick him up, which he did, and provided him, and Armand had one of the other victims' vehicle that he dropped off Uptown. So Manuel picked him up from Uptown and brought him to another location. So we have booked Terry Manuel with an accessory after the fact to first degree murder. And he's in the JPCC. These two individuals have a history of possibly committing crimes together. They know one another, and it was as a result, as I said earlier, of the diagnostics on the phone that led us to Terry Manuel. We continue to tie up loose ends, and I can tell you that over the weekend our case against Armand Tart has become a lot stronger. I did want to have this conference today because I had indicated to y'all on Friday that at that point in time we believed that he had acted alone, which he did in the perpetration of the murders, but the fact of the matter is he did call for assistance to try and once again secrete his identity and secrete that he was anywhere around the Pasadena area during the time of these murders. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do you anticipate any other additional arrests?
This investigation continues. We continue to run out different pieces of information that we have, but I don't know. As I said on Friday, we thought that he acted alone, and then we find out that he didn't. And we've been able to both rule in and rule out other parts of statements and that any number of people have made. So it would be premature and conjecture on my part to definitively say one way or the other.
And yes. I noticed that Manuel's arrest in Kenner location in Kenner is where Tart was arrested. Was he actually physically harboring him on Friday?
I don't know that we've actually, well, obviously he was an accessory after the fact because of the information that he had in picking him up, and the fact that he obviously knew a little bit more than the robbery issue, because there were statements made to him that he had to jug Harold Friesard as well, and that Harold potentially may have smoked some of his crack cocaine that belonged to Armand, and made statements about how strong Mr. Friesard was as well. So he shared with him ultimately a little bit more information than just the robbery. And obviously, all of these things brought together led us to have the probable cause to arrest him for the accessory after the fact to the first-degree murder.
But Manuel did reside at the address where,
I think he did reside at,
Yeah.
2645, that's correct.
So is that when he picked him up in Uptown, he took him to that address?
No, he was delivered ultimately, well, I'm not exactly sure where he was first delivered, but he ended up at another location that we're not willing to talk about at this point in time.
Any updates on the woman who called 911, how she's doing?
The last I heard, she was in stable and good condition. I'm not sure if she's still in the hospital at this point in time.
Sheriff, it seems like you believe he killed Friesard first and then the other victims. Could you give us a little
Yes.
more information on the
That-
narrative there?
That's what we believe. As I said before, we're still tying together some loose ends as it relates to the forensics, but at this point in time, we believe that Friesard was the first victim.
And in the past couple, wrapping up, in the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of drug-related issues. Just message to people in Jefferson Parish. You know, obviously, this was drug-related to, is y'all gonna be doing anything new or anything, or just reiterating how drugs in the parish are obviously not tolerated?
Well, the reality is, as I said on Friday, that, this whole drug culture that's out there, it's a little mystifying to me that folks' conscience is shocked by virtue of the fallout of this. I have been saying since I was elected sheriff in '07 that typically the murders that we have in Jefferson Parish and throughout the metropolitan region are relational. And it's typically related to drugs, money, or domestic. And those are the three particular areas that drive these murders. The fact that we had 3 at one location, or 4 at one location, 3 in one apartment and 1 at the other, as I said on Friday, is that this is the risk that's taken by folks that engage in the drug activity, and this is what happens. It just so happens that it all happened at one time where we had 4 murders. But this is the reality today. I'm also mystified by folks that I hear all the time. Well, I don't understand why y'all making these marijuana arrests. Everybody smokes marijuana. But you know what else happens? We have people that have been killed in this parish over marijuana. The fact of the matter is, it is an illicit drug, it's illegal, and there continues to be a significant profit motive in marketing drugs. And if you want to enter into this culture, you do so at significant personal risk. I don't know what else I can say about it. We have been always very proactive. We typically make somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 drug arrests a year, give or take. Some depending on the year, but on average it's around 3,000 drug arrests. And when you look at the number of arrests that we make, it's probably somewhere in the 5 to 10% of the overall arrests throughout the parish, not unlike most other jurisdictions. So the only other message that I would send is people know in their neighborhood what fits and what doesn't. I encourage them to call the sheriff's office if they're seeing a lot of unusual activity around an address. You can remain anonymous, and we will deal with that information accordingly, and it'll never come back to you. Because you are the individual that's going to suffer the degradation of the community fabric that you've grown accustomed to in any particular geographic area. You are also the individual that has everything at risk. Degradation of the equity in your property, degradation of your community, degradation of your neighborhood, and degradation of the all-important thing, public safety. Your safety and the safety of your children or anybody else that lives in your particular, at your particular residence. That's what you suffer for sitting on your hands, sitting silent, and not sharing that information with the lawful authorities that can actually do something about it. I mean, I was completely mystified by the fact of all the people on Pasadena that were willing to talk after there was a quadruple homicide, as opposed to being, readily available to talk prior to the quadruple homicide. And that's not something that I say lightly, because it happens over and over and over again. If we took the mindset that we're only willing to accept on our street what we're willing to accept in our home, we would take back every street, block by block, in Jefferson Parish and throughout the metropolitan area if we had that simple approach. And that we called, and we are very strict about, if you call and you want to remain anonymous, that we make sure that that in fact happens. The few instances over the many years that we violated that, I've terminated people within this organization. Because when I make that promise, I mean it. And I don't take it lightly. I don't take people's public safety lightly. But, when we say, what are you going to do different? I don't know what else I can say or how I can encourage folks to understand the downstream implications, whether you're across the street and innocent or you're living in the doper's house, allowing this to occur. We're all in this together, and we have to stand up as it relates to this if we're going to take back our small little geographic area, our large neighborhoods, so forth and so on. We do a good job of it for the most part. Last year being the lowest crime rate year in Jefferson Parish since 1974. That's just not through the efforts of these men and women that work hard. That's the collaborative effort of the communities and us, the parish council, parish administration and us, the district attorney's office and us, the courts and us, all of the other service agencies and us, of developing this team and teamwork and working together. You've heard me say 1,000 times, there's no singular agency that has the assets or resources necessary to do the job. It takes all of us working collectively and collaboratively together to get it done. I don't know what else I can say to encourage folks to step up.
So just two things. So it's accurate to say that Manuel was harboring Tart at his
Yes.
house. And then when Tart surrendered, was Manuel home at the time?
I don't know I don't know if Manuel was there or not. I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Remember, it wasn't until after the fact, when we were able to do some of the forensic work that we do, that we recognized that there was a link between the two. Okay? Thank you.